Thank you very much, Saurabh sir. And you spared time for me for this interaction, sir. Thank you.
Good morning, Purvesh. It's good thing that you are arranging this kind of seminars. It will certainly be useful to all friends who would like to find out as to how you can achieve whatever one can in the practice over a period of time. So I must compliment you for this.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, before I start with further interaction about your career and life journey, sir, I'm aware that you had opposed Mr. Nani Palkhiwala at very young age.
Ah,
You could succeed
correct.
in that matter. So, if you'd like to share your experience with Nani Palkhiwala in opposing him and about that matter.
I became standing counsel for income tax department at a very young age. And as a standing counsel for the department, I was also sometimes required to go to income tax appellate tribunal to defend some very, very heavy cases of the department. I was told by the department that there is a matter. In fact, ultimately, Mr. Palkhiwala appeared in 3 matters against me before the tribunal, but I'm only referring to the first matter. I was told that he is going to appear in a matter. It's a very, very heavy matter involving stakes running into crores of rupees, and we would request you to appear. I was both thrilled and, so to say, overwhelmed because Mr. Palkhiwala is a legend, and to appear against him in a tax matter was something which was a very, very frightening experience, at least to begin with. But what I find over here is, number one, when he appeared before the tribunal, he appeared as if he is a regular advocate who would not throw his weight around. He argued so effortlessly and so convincingly that I genuinely believe that the tribunal members were mesmerized. So when I started giving a reply, though I believed that I had a very good case, I was in fact meeting a dead wall, and ultimately I lost. I also lost 2 other matters against him, but that is not very material. What is important is that the first matter where I lost, department carried to High Court. And because the stakes were very significant, we requested the High Court to take up the matter on an urgent basis. High Court fixed the matter on urgent basis. Again, Mr. Palkhiwala appeared before the High Court. He again argued the matter effortlessly, but before the High Court, I won and he lost. So that's a matter of great pleasure and privilege for me that I could succeed a matter against Mr. Palkhiwala. But I learned 2 things in the process. One, howsoever senior, reputed, or knowledgeable you may become, you would never throw your weight around and never would like to impress the tribunal or the other side by your great knowledge. And number 2, at the end of the hearing, he personally congratulated me, saying, young man, you have argued well. I'm sure you will have a good future, so on and so forth. In other words, he could, in spite of the fact that he could have easily ignored me, I was not even 30-year-old then, or less than that. And yet he went out of way to encourage me in my practice and spoke in a very, very nice manner, which also would show that howsoever good you may be, howsoever strong you may be, humility is one characteristic which you should never lose. These are the 2 things that I have learned from Mr. Palkhiwala, apart from his amazing knowledge about the matter and about the law. I thought that I would pick up some new arguments. He would just tell the instructing chartered accountant, please bring that book. That means his own book, but he would not say, bring my book of Kanga and Palkhiwala. It's already covered on this page. And he would effortlessly answer the issues. A great experience.
Sir, you had also had an occasion to assist Mr. Chagla. So if you can share that experience as well.
Again, Mr. Chagla has been a great lawyer, especially in the field of corporate law. There was a very, very heavy matter involving the royal family of Gaikwads. There were disputes within the family, and I was briefed So also Mr. Chagla was briefed. In fact, so also Mr. Darayas Khambata, who later on became Advocate General of Maharashtra, he was also briefed. Again, Mr. Chagla would involve all of us in the strategy meeting, in the discussion, in the way in which the matter has to be argued. And again, the quality which I found from him is to encourage again juniors. That was a time when I had put in about 10 to 15 years of practice. I was number 2 counsel, broadly meant to assist him. Matter was at Company Law Board, New Delhi. On one day, he said it is impossible for him to come to Delhi to argue the matter because he had some matter at Bombay High Court which he could not leave. Right. So he told the clients and the instructing solicitors, Amarchand Mangaldas, that Mr. Soparkar will argue. I have full confidence, and therefore you must instruct him to argue. Right. I was in a way slightly reluctant. It was to take over the matter from wherever it was left on an earlier occasion. But he said, nothing doing, I'm sure. I know that you are doing well and you would certainly do no damage. In fact, you would do good for the matter. That's how I carried on for that day along with Mr. Khambata. And the next day, Mr. Chagla took over. The lesson that I learned from him is always encourage persons in whom you have confidence. That will not only help him building up his career, but it will also ensure that his knowledge is enhanced.
Right. Sir, you had been a bright student. I have been, my information are that you were ranked 6th in your board examination. So after ranking so high in the board, was it your always a career to join profession, or you had goals of medical and engineers as bright students usually have?
It's a little funny story. Till I gave exam of SSC board, I thought I will become a doctor. My father very much wanted me to be a doctor. But then I believed that to study for medicine is going to be very, very long. Somehow or other, I was not very keen to study for years together. So suddenly, I decided to switch to commerce. And frankly, I wanted to be a chartered accountant. Right. So after my examination of SSC, though my parents very much desired that I should take up the field of science and ultimately medicine, I decided not to pursue that particular line. And to the credit of my parents, I must say, they never came in my way. In fact, they said, if you are not keen to take up that field, it's fine, no problem. Right. I studied commerce, and then I had a very good rank there. I was first class, first in university there also. But then I started the chartered accountancy course. True. I was third in India in inter CA. I was third in India in final CA as well. Yes. I was side by side incidentally doing the law. I was never keen to be a lawyer till probably the second year of my studies of chartered accountancy course. I realized that I do not want to do audit. If I do not want to do audit, and if I want to practice essentially in the field of tax laws, then why not to take up a field which will make me appear not only at the tribunal level, but also at the High Court and Supreme Court level. Right. So then I changed the gears. And though I became a chartered accountant, I eventually started the practice of law. In other words, I joined the profession of law almost as by an accident. Right. Accident created by me, not that somebody else was responsible for that accident. Yeah. But then once I joined the practice, I probably am very happy. And I believe one of the finest decisions in my life that I have taken is to join this particular profession.
Right. Sir, as per my instructions, you have also cleared your IIM Ahmedabad examination, but could not clear in your group discussion. And now you are visiting faculty for IIM Ahmedabad. I'm sorry, sir. Am I audible?
No. I could hear your question now about my reaction. Okay. I appeared for the common entrance test at IIM. I cleared the entrance test, written test. In Viva I did not score as high as I could or should have. So I did not get admission at IIM Ahmedabad. I did get admission at IIM Bangalore and IIM Kolkata both. In those days, IIM Ahmedabad was the first choice. Bangalore and Kolkata would be second and the third choice. So I got admission in second and third choice, Bangalore and Kolkata. However, by that time, I had decided that I would rather be a chartered accountant lawyer, and therefore I chose not to pursue the studies of management course by going to Bangalore or Kolkata. 10 years rolled by, I cleared my graduation in 77. And in 87, I was invited to be visiting faculty at IIM Ahmedabad, an institution which did not give me admission for the course.
Right.
But then I was invited to be faculty at IIM Ahmedabad. And for 2 decades, I taught 2 subjects over there, corporate tax planning and legal aspects of business.
Right.
Then because of pressure of my other work in 2007, I gave up teaching there. It has been an interesting experience. And in a hindsight, thinking back, probably not getting admission at IIM Ahmedabad was a good thing. Probably I would have been somewhere in a corporate structure. And I am not sure whether I would have been both mentally and financially as comfortable as I am today if I would have been in a corporate world. I'm not sure about financially, nobody would know. But mentally, I am over here extremely at peace and very, very happy.
Right.
I'm able to pursue significantly my academic interests as well. I've been giving lectures all over the country. In fact, in this lockdown, would have given not less than 6 or 7 webinars so far, and 3-4 more webinars are scheduled in the next 3-4 days.
Right.
All these kinds of activities of pursuing academic interest would have been possible if and only if I am in this particular field. And therefore, I do not regret even for a day of my not getting admission at IIM Ahmedabad. As I said, I had already got admission in Bangalore and Kolkata. Therefore, not pursuing that was essentially a matter of my choice rather than something which was not available to me.
Right. Sir, what I have observed you for many years now, that you could judge the judge very easily and you could identify what he actually wants, and you try and pull judge from what he wants from very beginning. But you try and pull the judge from whatever he is satisfied with, and you identify it in very few moments after you are on your legs. So how do you identify that?
Thank you for your kind words, but let me clarify what I believe is the role of a lawyer. The role of a lawyer is not to tell the judge whatever he has prepared. As a lawyer, you are expected to prepare a matter from all possible angles. But what happens in 2 minutes of your argument, you come to know which is the perspective from which judge would like you to address the matter. Ultimately, the client has briefed you so that you can successfully put across his point of view so that you can get a favorable result. Therefore, instead of exhibiting as to what are the different nuances of the matter, including the issues on which the learned judge does not really want an answer, if you concentrate on the issues on which you are expected to give a reply and concentrate and focus on that, my experience is you ultimately get good results. A lawyer should know, I very strongly believe, when not to argue and what not to argue. Many times you lose a matter because you argue too much. Because if you argue too much, the judge starts having an apprehension or a feeling that maybe there is something in the matter which requires a deeper scrutiny. Right. There are times and matters where just by touching upon an issue, just by probing an issue and finding out how the judge reacts, you may just stop the argument. Hopefully, in a given case, you may get even a good judgment by not arguing the matter, by just getting up and relying upon the judgment of lower court and broadly indicating what are the points which have been decided in your favor. Surely you will have luxury of these arguments only as a respondent, but as an appellant or a petitioner also, it is not as if you need to argue everything in order to catch the attention of the judge. If you put across the best point first, and if the judge starts listening to you, then probably as the judge starts looking at the matter, you then, like a game of chess, play the next move depending upon how the judge or the other side plays the move, only then you will be able to successfully take the matter across.
Sir, any changes that you would like to bring in the present legal education system?
The present legal education system, I believe, is very good, very exhaustive, as opposed to what we studied. Probably the present education is far more intense. In fact, the 5-year law course students are exposed to so many things. The reason probably is in those days, law was ordinarily not a chosen career except for those whose father or whose relatives were in the field of law, and you would necessarily go in the field of law because of heritage.
Right.
For otherwise, someone who did not have any family member, ordinarily people would not go in the field of law.
Right.
Now law has become a chosen profession, as much, if not more, as medicine, and certainly more than engineering. The result is that the best talent comes to this particular field. And if the best talent comes to this particular field, surely they have to be given the best education, which all these 5-year law colleges, especially good law colleges, all national law universities are providing. The only grievance that I have with them is, and that is where I am exposed on a one-to-one basis, is that the moot court competition, the problem that they give for moot court competition is so unrealistic, so hypothetical, and so complex that in real world, the student would probably never have this kind of a case. And therefore, to prepare him on this issue is going to be a mammoth task. I am aware that in case, in one of the matters, students of one of the national law university came to me and requested me to discuss with them a case which was given to them in relation to income tax matters. Now, I believe I am reasonably good in that field. It took me 2 hours to understand the problem. And I thought that questions were so complex that I could not even find an answer for a couple of days. Now, if that is the kind of moot court competition the students are required to face, I wonder, would it really be giving them something to work upon to take at home for future years, or is it something which will just be an academic exercise? I would really wish that the moot court competition questions become more realistic, more real life, and more practical.
Right, sir. Sir, whom have you started your practice?
I started practice in the year 1981. And I started my practice with Mr. Sharad Bansilal Vakil, the doyen of the bar, one of the strongest, one of the most courageous lawyers, who taught me how to be a lawyer who will work very, very hard. It's one thing that I have learned from him, apart from many other things, that there is no shortcut to success unless you put in hard labor. Unless you prepare yourselves thoroughly in a matter, you can never be a good lawyer. Even when he was in 70s, and if he would come to the court for a matter, he would have been ready with complete facts and law. And this is one lesson that I've learned, which I will cherish for all years to come.
Right, sir. So what are the qualities that SB Vakil would be having that you would like to share with the students, which they can adopt within themselves?
One, as I said, hard work. Second, courage of conviction. He would never hesitate to argue a point with conviction, even though we would know that a judge was dead against him. For example, judge would have, during the course of deliberation, made some statement which would be totally against our case. He would fearlessly and with full conviction, by giving judgment after judgments in support of his contention, plead his case to the extent that judge will have to give a second thought to what the judge would have otherwise said in the beginning. So I would believe that every lawyer should have two things. One, ability to work very, very hard, and two, ability to pursue your point to the extent that you feel that you have done best in this particular sphere. No stone should be turned untouched.
Right. Sir, when have you first time appeared independently on your legs before the court, and were you nervous?
Oh, I was extremely nervous. Uh, I joined Mr. Vakil's office at that time, except for one Monaben Chinubai, there was no other junior of his. So very soon I started getting briefs to mention. After mentioning, I started getting briefs from him for like civil application for condonation of delay and heirs. I was not initially arguing matters on my own. But one day he was called up in the city civil court and he went there. In the meantime, in the court, I distinctly recollect Justice B.K. Mehta and Justice D.H. Shukla's bench,
Mm-hmm.
a motor accident claim matter came up for hearing.
Mm.
I had prepared, in fact, all matters of Mr. Vakil's office, but then Mr. Vakil was not there, so I requested the court to keep the matter back because Mr. Vakil is not available.
Mm.
The court said, no, nothing doing, young man. If you are a junior, you should be ready with the matter. Why are you not ready?
Right.
The bench felt that I am not ready. I said, sir, I am ready, but I don't have authority to argue.
Right.
The bench said, nothing doing. You start arguing. We'll tell Mr. Vakil that we have compelled you to argue. With hesitation, I started arguing the matter. I believe I did well.
Mm-hmm.
The matter was parted and then till recess.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, I came to know that Mr. Vakil was called in the recess, who by that time had come back, and the judges told him that your junior is doing well, let him continue, don't worry. And that's how I started getting brief from Mr. Vakil.
Mm-hmm.
After some time, in fact, he handed over the whole MSCT department of his office to me, and I started running all MSCT matters of Mr. Vakil. So much so that for quite some time in the High Court, I was supposed to be MSCT specialist. Any judge or any advocate who would have an MSCT problem, he would come and tell me, or the judge would ask me, what is the law on this issue? How has the High Court decided? What is the multiplier? How would you decide as to who are the dependents, so on and so forth.
Right.
That's how I started building my practice. And I'm thankful to Mr. Vakil for permitting me to run his matters, which made me bold to start arguing the matters. But you are right. In the initial period, I was extremely nervous. I must also thank the judges who would encourage juniors that juniors do not feel uncomfortable in arguing the matters.
Right, sir. Sir, when have you decided to become independent? At what stage have you decided that?
See, I joined Mr. Vakil's office in the year 1981. By 84 or 85, I started, as I said, I almost started Mr. Vakil's MSCT matter department was taken over by me. He graciously said, you run all these matters. From 1986 to 89, I was standing counsel for the income tax department. And then I realized that if I want to now start practice of my own, this is now my time for me to start my office. So in the 1992, with the blessings of Mr. Vakil, I started my office. And from 92 onwards, I am entirely on my own. Though prior thereto also, even though I was junior of Mr. Vakil, I was permitted to have my own practice, including the matters we would have against each other. In fact, that matter of which Mr. Chagla, Sangram Singh Gayakwad's matter, in that matter at the High Court, Mr. Vakil would appear against me, though I was sitting in his office. So he had no issue that I should not take up a matter against him, though I am sitting in the office. And he was very clear that clients should have faith in each of us, that they should not have any problem, that because you are my junior, you should not be taking a matter against me or vice versa.
Right. So what do you advise to the students who will be passing now? Because they have been mostly inclined to go into either corporate or in the legal firms, as there won't be any security for them in the profession in the beginning, in the initial stage. And thereby we loses bright student coming into litigation. So what do you advise them to such bright students who at all would be willing to join profession?
You are right. It's now unfortunate that large number of bright students have chosen not to join the practice. The reason is that they have an opportunity available to them of getting very good pay package in the law offices and the corporate world. I still believe that the pleasures of a private practice they are immense as compared to probably working in a law office or in a corporate world. My advice to them would be, if you do not have a godfather in this profession, if your father, uncle, or close relative is not in the profession, and if that is the ground on which you decide you should not be joining this profession because you believe that it will take ages for you to get the briefs or you will not get the briefs at all, please do not carry that impression. I did not have a godfather in this field.
Yes.
I am the first generation lawyer, and yet I have got a reasonably good, successful career. If you work hard, you would be getting briefs. It will take some time. It's not as if on the first day you will start getting the brief. You will certainly have first 3 to 5 years of struggle.
Right.
And you would always have moments of doubt when you would feel that your colleague who was with you in the law college has now been getting a very, very handsome pay package in the law firm or in the corporate world.
True.
But please do not be disheartened. Eventually, you will certainly do, if you are working hard, you will certainly do far better than what they would do. And therefore, a profession is a challenging thing. You should be prepared to take up the challenge. But if you take the challenge in the right sphere, even though you do not have any external factors to help you, by your sheer dint of your efforts, you would be doing well. Therefore, my advice to them would be, if you are inclined to come into the practice, but are reluctant to do that because you believe that there is no one to help you to get the brief, that's a fear which is unjustified. Join the office of a good senior, spend some time over there, learn from him, and eventually you will start building up the practice.
Right, sir. So, what do you expect from advocates who are briefing you in a matter? Because mostly wherein you are being briefed is a subject which is more technical of nature. So, what do you expect out of the advocates for their preparation in the subjects where you are being briefed?
What I expect normally is a thorough in knowledge of the facts. Law is something which I expect I will take care, but I must have the full facts from them. If I do not get the facts, unfortunately, I will end up reaching a wrong conclusion. If I need to reach the right destination, I must be given the correct path of facts. So a complete chronology of events with pagination is something which I would expect them to do. If they can share the law, very good. But if they cannot share the law, that is something over which I am not very, very particular. But facts they must completely give to me.
Right. So, if whenever you find that there is no merits in the matter, how do you react with such situation?
If I find there are no merits of the matter, I would dissuade the instructing advocate from pursuing the litigation. I would tell him it's not worth litigating and spending time, money, and energy. But then there are occasions when the client is particular, instructing a particular. Over a period of years, I also realized that you have lost some of the finest matters and you have won some of the very, very bad matters as well. Ultimately, litigation is a matter of chance. It is not possible for you to predict with reasonable accuracy the outcome of a matter.
Yeah.
Your job as a lawyer is to advise the clients according to the best of your ability. But in spite of your advice, if the clients believe that the matter needs to be pursued, then I believe your duty is to then do your best and argue the matter to the best of your ability. Then to say, no, because I said that matter should not be pursued and still you want me to pursue, I will not take up the matter, is not the right course of action.
Right, sir. So, what methodology do you adopt for preparing a matter by your own?
I read the matter completely from all pages, first to last page, have my own notes, make the list of the judgments that I would like to rely upon. And then, unlike some other lawyer friends of mine who would have exhaustive notes, I have very, very brief notes running into 1, 2, or 3 pages. And usually I would think on my feet when I'm arguing. I would only have got the broad propositions that I want to canvas. How exactly I will fill up that broad proposition is something which I will decide on the spot. As you stated in the beginning,
Yes.
I look at how the judge reacts to my proposition. If I find that is interested, I'll go into greater detail. If I find it is something which is required to be emphasized because that is the backbone of my contention, I'll go into greater detail. If it is not something which is very important, it's peripheral, I'll then move on. So everyone has his own style of working, everyone has his own style of preparation. My style of preparation is not to have very, very exhaustive notes. I usually go by cryptic notes. So if someone wants to prepare written submission on the basis of my notes, it will not be possible for him to do that, because I have written down almost in a telegraphic language of like no hearing. That's all. I would not have then said Article 14, breach of principle. The natural justice, no hearing. These are the judgments, something like this.
Yeah.
And therefore, my notes are not very exhaustive. Maybe preparation is reasonably exhausting, but notes are not very exhaustive.
Okay. Sir, any specific matter that you could have, that could be said to have transformed your attitude in the legal profession?
Over a period of years, I have argued a large number of interesting and challenging matters.
Yes.
Tax matters, as I said, Mr. Palkhiwala matter was an important matter. In the corporate world, there was a scheme of restructuring of Arvind Mills, which was run by me, I believe, in the year 2000. Till that point of time, that was the biggest scheme of restructuring, where the stakes involved were a couple of thousand of crore of rupees. Now, obviously, there are larger schemes. It was extremely complex scheme. There was serious oppositions from large number of creditors, including foreign creditors. It was a very, very longish matter. And after long arguments running for days together, ultimately the scheme got sanctioned. I believe that is one of the turning point in my practice as a corporate lawyer, where I could achieve an extremely difficult task. So there are matters in different fields which are interesting, but I would like to name this as one of the most interesting and challenging matters that I have handled.
Yes, sir. Sir, you had been a very fast reader, and what my instructions are that you could even complete 1 or 2 books in a day, that too while you were traveling between the courts in your car. So how could you be able to read so fast? What is that practice that you have adopted?
See, in my car from office to court, people always find that I'm reading something in the back seat, and they assume that I'm reading a brief. I'm not reading a brief. I'm reading either a storybook, or of late I'm watching a movie. I take great pleasure in reading book or watching a good movie. I do read very fast, both Gujarati and English. The reason is, number one, I love to read. Number two, it's not as if I would like to read every word, digest it, and then go to the next word. I would read probably paragraphs so that I would know exactly the gist of the matter. Essentially, I'm reading a fiction novel. I am not reading serious things. If it's a fiction novel, it's by and large crime novels, then it is not necessary for me to interpret that novel. So one can easily scan through the passages which I find boring, go to interesting part. That's how I can finish reading very, very quickly. Kindle has been a great help. My Kindle carries more than a couple of 100 books. So I'm very, very happy to be with my Kindle.
Right, sir. Sir, what are the hobbies that you pursue along with your professional career?
Reading, traveling. Since 1995, we are in 2020. Over a period of last 25 years, I think barring one vacation, for rest of the vacations, I have closed my office for the whole vacation. I have never worked for a day in a vacation, both summer and Diwali. And I'm invariably out of Ahmedabad. Whether I go abroad or whether I'm in the country is not material, but I have always been taking vacations. So I love to travel. I love to read. I love to see good movies. Though I do not understand music, I love to listen to good music, spend time with the friends. The day is exhausted.
Right, sir. Sir, any message that you would like to give to the legal fraternity at large to remain positive during this lockdown period?
This is something over which nobody has any control.
Right.
We have two options. Option number one, be sorry for the whole thing and then continue to brood and believe that the world is coming to an end. Or option number two is to take it positively. Occupy yourself into activities which will make you both mentally happy and probably educationally more enriched.
Right.
So I have been taking parts in webinars after webinars. Either I'm giving webinars or I'm attending webinars. Today I'm attending 2 webinars as a part of the spectators or as a part of the audience.
Right.
So that's how I love to learn the things, new things which are interesting to me.
Right.
It's only if you spend time in a manner so as to give you a feeling of happiness that you will not find these troubling times so disturbing so as to make you a very, very depressed person.
Right.
I take this opportunity as a forced vacation. Enjoy the life as it comes.
Right.
Try to spend time in a manner so as to be both mentally happy, physically well-doing.
Right, sir. Sir, what changes do you foresee in the legal profession post-lockdown period?
Video conferencing has now become a norm.
Yes.
Now people, even if coronavirus goes away, people have realized that it may not be necessary to physically meet.
Correct.
There have been, everybody has, and especially in cases of people like me, people travel from all over the country to come and discuss the issues. I always find, why should a person travel for one day, spend one full day to meet me for half an hour, 1 hour or 45 minutes?
Right.
Now I believe people will think as a serious option video conferencing.
Correct.
And by scheduling a video conferencing, people who are sitting at different places will be able to join, which will significantly reduce the time which is wasted in travel. So one thing that I believe is going to happen is, especially client conferences may be held by video conferencing. Arbitrations might be held on video conferencing when arbitrators are spread all over the country or sometimes globally. Even court hearings should eventually switch to video conferencing. If that happens, just consider people are required to travel to Delhi to appear in Supreme Court from all over the country for a matter SLP hearing which goes on from anywhere from 1 minute to 10 minutes. People are required to spend huge time, money and energy. If there's a video conferencing available, it will be much easier for all concerned to do necessary things. So I personally believe there is going to be a significant change in the outlook of the matter in how the law practice will be examined hereafter.
Right, sir. Sir, any legal advice, any career advice that you would like to give to me personally, sir?
No. As I said earlier, advice to all my junior friends would be work hard and you will achieve your objective. I'm sure that by putting in hard efforts, you will certainly be in a position to do very well in the practice.
Right.
I think that's the only thing that I would like to say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Purvesh.
for spending.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye, sir.